Okay, so I'm going to use my crappy headphones. I think that that should work. Hi, guys. Hopefully you can hear me now. I just talked like for 3 minutes straight and all by myself. So if you can't hear me, let me know if you still can't hear me. So I tell you, technology is not my friend. I think it's my Yeti, which I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why my Yeti's not working. It's like a ridiculously expensive microphone. Telling you. Okay, so let's try this again. Welcome to the Writing Sprints. And if this is your first time here, okay, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes, yes, it does go technologically awry. It definitely happens. And if you're just watching the replay, feel free to write along with us. And I was saying that what's behind me is my monarch butterfly caterpillars. You'll see them in next week's video, the thing anyways in the background. And I'm going to start loading some videos about them on my TikTok. They don't really suit my YouTube channel, so I'm not going to load them there. I'm just going to load them on the TikTok because I like to raise them. And there's controversy about whether or not it's good to raise them and whether it's good to mess with Mother Nature. So I'm only raising a few this year, sort of treading the middle ground because I really like having an impact on the butterfly population. And my entire yard is a Florida native yard, and it's filled with butterfly and pollinator plants. So I'm kind of a geek that way. Yay, glad you guys can hear me now. And I got no idea what the problem is with that. Anyways, I'll figure it out some other day, maybe. So nice to see you guys, Gayla and Wendy and Hafamo and Silver Ollie and Heather. So good to see you all here. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. And Miss Blogger, yes, good to see you guys. And so today I'm still working on a client chapter, but the good news is I've already written it. I've just got to read it during our first sprint and do any last minute edits. And if I'm super fast, that means I get rewarded with working on my own book for the last half of it. Before I do that, I wanted to add the video. Hey, Jean, nice to see you here. Add the link to the video for this week because I don't know if you guys, I know some of you have seen it because I've seen some comments, but in that video, even though it's mainly about a romance novel scene, what I do is I tear apart a scene, period. And you can see where the conflict is, where the characters think about their internal things, their emotional things. I really tear it apart and show you exactly how that scene is constructed and how each sentence works together. And I do touch on the romantic part because it's for romance, but you can just ignore that part if you're not writing a romance and say, okay, this is where I put the mystery part or the thriller part or the, fantasy part, because the difference between the genres is just what you focus on for more than 50% of the plot. So if you're writing a fantasy, then the fantasy novel, then the fantasy world is more than 50% of the plot. If you're writing a romance, the romance is more than 50% of the plot. So that's kind of how you decide what genre you're writing. So just ignore the word romance and just say, okay, that, and insert what genre you're writing. But really it does. It tears apart a scene. It seems like a lot of people really liked me doing that. And if that's the case, then I will do another one. Next week's video, you guys heard it here first, is all about the crappy first book that I wrote. I share pages from it. It's so bad. I wrote it way back in, oh my God, a long time ago, like 2000, maybe, no, earlier than that, maybe 97, 96. It's so bad, and I'll share excerpts from it and tell you all the things I did wrong. And so I analyze that first scene too, to show you how screwed up you can make it if you don't follow some of the quote unquote rules. So it'd be really good. And yes, I'm so glad you guys liked the breakdown video. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm definitely going to do one for show not tell because that's a concept a lot of people struggle with. So that's basically it. Tell your friends because I would love to get the channel to have a little bit more visibility. The problem with YouTube is that it doesn't show the videos to strangers if it's not getting enough traction. And although I have a nice, healthy group of subscribers, the more you share it and say to your friends or your writing group, hey, you should watch this, then the more traffic it gets to YouTube, the more it shows it to other people looking at writing videos, and thus the more people learn how to write a book. Because I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I would rather read really good books than really bad books. So if we can get lots of people to understand exactly how books go together and how to write a really strong, compelling book, there'll be a lot more to read, and that makes my little heart happy. So yes, thanks Miss Blogger and Silver Ollie and everybody. I'm so glad that you guys did. Okay, so I've got a writing prompt for today. And what are three, it goes along with the video that I did this week. What are three conflicts that your character has in your current scene? And if you look at that video that I released, the character has an external conflict, an internal conflict, and a romantic conflict. So yours would be external, internal, and genre. So that's all kind of like what I want you to focus on in your scene. If you just take a minute to figure that out, that will help you a lot to see if you have enough conflict in the scene. And if you're struggling with it, watch that video again. I have a couple other videos up about conflict that are also linked within that video, I believe. And you can find a lot more information there. I think that's it. We should probably be writing, right? I'm excited about getting to my book as well, hopefully after this first break. So we'll do 15 minutes and hopefully nobody focuses on their words and instead just writes. I'm trying to think of 7 things at one time, as usual. So let's do 15 minutes of writing. I'll play a little music, and if you guys have writing questions, pop them in the chat and I'll answer them when I come back. I'll see you in 15 minutes. I got through the whole edit, and the last sentence, the last word I got tied up on. So that's all I have left to write is one word for that chapter for my client, and then I can email it off and work on my own book. The last word, I almost went over for the time, but I realize you guys are counting on me, coming back after 15 minutes. So hey, the revised writer, nice to see you here. If you haven't printed the sprints before, we just kind of write for 15 minutes without thinking about it. It looked like a sprint in track, but way more fun is what I usually say, because sprinting in track is not fun. I've done it. And that way you're not fussing over every word, except for me with that very last word. But it's the very last word of the whole book, not just the whole chapter. So it's like one of the most important words. Okay, so Half a Mo saying she's finding it really difficult to keep track of the threads for internal and external GMC, etc., but trying to remember them and get them all into play does my head in. I get that. And I remember going through that when I first started out, because there's so many things. It feels like there's so many things to know and so many things to put together. My key, or the thing that finally put it all together for me, was that the characters' weaknesses will get them into trouble, which means they make decisions that cost them in some way, or create more of a conflict, and that decision creates the next action for the next scene. So that feeds into the external goal. So when you have your character's weaknesses getting them into trouble over and over and over again, because maybe she is super spontaneous, or he doesn't open up to people, or she rushes into a fire without thinking twice, those kinds of actions are what create their problems, which thus creates a new problem they have to solve in the next scene. So that's the next action. So if she rushes into a burning building without thinking twice, maybe she gets all burned and she can't rescue the person that's in there, right? So her impulsiveness made her do something that resulted in a conflict. So then what is she going to do? How is she going to get them out of the building or maybe something fell on her leg, so now they're both stuck in the building and all of that. Like my husband and I are watching From, which, I don't know if you like scary things. Holy crap, it's terrifying. It's a series that was on Epix, came out a couple of years ago, and they're doing a season 3. But in this episode that we're watching, there are these like creatures that come out at night that kill everybody if you let them into the house. So the creatures get in, 90% of the people leave, but this one kid who had chosen to get drunk, weakness, instead of dealing with his issues, his emotional issues, he chooses to get drunk. He is drunk, so he misses the call when they first are like, oh my gosh, they're in here, you got to get out. So he misses the call, he comes kind of stumbling down the stairs, and guess what? The creatures are already there, and they do terrible things to you when they get you. And so what's he going to do? How is he going to get out? His girlfriend, who can't seem to put herself ahead of him, runs back into the building, even though she knows she will surely die by going back into the building. So now they've both had weaknesses that cause them to have actions that put them into a place where they're super, super at risk. So the two of them are in the house, and you as the viewer is like, there's no way to get out, because once the creatures are in the house, it allows them to get through the whole house. There's rules to this community and From. So she comes up with like this last minute sort of last ditch effort thing and saves them. But that's the problem that they created by their weaknesses. So that creates the next action. And it seems like an impossible situation, like they're totally going to die. And I couldn't go to bed until I saw that they didn't die. I mean, I was really invested in this show. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So watch TV shows or look at books and think about, how did this character cause these problems? Why am I not big on the screen? This is my fault. Sorry. How did this character cause these problems that put them in this position that requires this new action? Hopefully that makes sense. I went on for a long time. Okay, sorry. Jean said, 5 characters too many to have in a book. The main character is being confronted with their beliefs. She's an advocate, mentor. No, I don't think 5 characters are too many to have in a book. 5 main characters that all have equal time on the page is difficult to manage. I've done books with 3 or 4 main characters, usually 3. I don't think, maybe not 4. I think I've done 3. And a couple secondary characters whose points of view were in the book. When you have 5, that's kind of like Lucy Foley's The Paris Apartment in the guest list. That's a lot for the reader to keep track of. It's a lot for the author to keep track of. But you can have 5 like pretty important characters. If you look at my books aren't here, but if you look at The Perfect Recipe, that's this series here. I have 3 sisters and a mom, And then I have and a grandma. So there's all these 5 characters that are all rotating throughout this series that are all important to the plot in different ways. Only one of them gets a starring role in each book, if that makes sense, because that way I don't have to try to, create 5 worlds, 5 goal, motivation, conflicts, 5 everythings. What piece of Miss Blogger, I have not applied any of Abby's advice to my own writing. So I'm going to be totally frank here. I've published 85 books with 4 of the big 5 New York publishers. I've published in 4 genres. I've been published for 30 years. And I'm a New York Times, USA Today bestselling author. So once in a while, I'll come across somebody's advice that I'll take, but everything that I talk about and everything that I use is what I learned, like literally on the ground as I'm trying to figure out how to sell my first book. Because I wrote 10 books in 8 years before I sold my first one. So I really worked hard to do that. And I worked really even way harder to get to the point where my books were good enough to be on the New York Times list and the USA Today list and all of that. So all of this advice that I give you guys, I've not taken or used from somebody else. It is stuff that I have learned myself and that I apply. I don't watch other writer channels because I've got my own. I run a very busy company and have a bunch of employees. So I don't really have time to be watching other channels. And I'm familiar with the other creators out there that are doing writing advice. But frankly, I have had a crap ton of experience. And so that is what I use to give my advice. And I think if you guys are learning something from another channel and you can apply that, or you can apply what I do, that's great. Or maybe put them together. I don't know. I just know what has worked for me for 85 books. So haven't had a chance to watch the breakdown video, but you plan to look at it this weekend, Cece. That's awesome. I'm so glad because I really had fun doing that. And so, wait, I was just scanning too fast. I really had fun doing it, and I hope to do more of those. Havamo said, thinking is boring in a character, so how much is too much? So there's a really easy test for this. And I'm trying to figure out like how I can do this in a video so I can really show you. But I want you to like set a timer. So if you've got a character thinking and you've got 2 characters or 3 or 4 characters in the scene and one character stops to think, click a timer and see how long it goes. Like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 2 minutes. As you're reading it, how long does it take to read those paragraphs? That's how long the other people are just sitting there going while the character's thinking. It's very boring. So if you do too much of it, then the other characters are just like hanging there. And then the reader is also just hanging there. So really kind of time it. You will also develop those instincts for how much is too much the more you write and the more you read, because it just becomes an innate skill. You'll kind of be like, okay, this seems to be lagging here. And that's where you're like, okay, probably need to take some of this introspection out. And thank you, Cece, for sharing my channel. I'm so excited. Yes, I really appreciate everybody that shares it, because that's basically how you get, noticed by the social media algorithm, because otherwise a really great channel can die without people spreading the word. And my husband and I watch some construction channels. He likes construction, and some of them I like. And we tell our friends all about them, like, you got to watch this story because some of them are really interesting. And yes, I still probably want to great words. And dude, my main character is a teenage boy. The inciting incident is his uncle's murder. Ooh, that sounds good. My instinct is to start the book from the uncle's perspective, telling the story of what happens right before his death. So it's not, it can and cannot be a problem. So the thing with readers and books is they're kind of like puppies. The first character that they read, they sort of imprint with, and they're trained because they've read a bunch of books to like build a relationship with this character and connect with this character. And if you kill them off right away, readers can get really ticked off. Now, that's not to say I haven't seen it done. I've of course seen it done. And I don't think I've ever done it in any of my own books. I'm trying to think, but I don't think I've ever killed off a character in the first chapter that was in their point of view. But you can totally do that. It just can be difficult to pull off. And it is really backstory, because your inciting incident is the uncle's death. And that's when everything changes for your main character. So I really think maybe having that chapter later, or making it just a prologue and kind of making it clear that he dies, you can get away with that. But it's still kind of backstory. because the main character, your main character, is going to kind of figure out what happened, and that's part of the intrigue for the reader as well. So up to you, but it is kind of hard to do. And Jean, watching too many coaches interferes with your writing. Absolutely. I remember when I first started, so there was no, I'm so old. There was no YouTube, there was no TikTok, social media. The internet did not exist when I first started writing. So you wanted to learn about something, you had to go to the actual bookstore, buy a book, or go to the library. There was none of this. And I'd go to conferences and writing meetings. And so I would go to lots and lots and lots of writing classes at different conferences and writing chapters. And I did learn from a lot of different people. And there became a point where it was just like so much information. And so I just kind of stuck with a couple of people that I resonated with, because not everybody's going to resonate with me. Not everybody's going to resonate with the other writing coaches out there. You got to find who works for you, who works with you, like, and who speaks your language and who is easy for you to understand. Because just because everybody's saying this is the best writing teacher ever doesn't mean that that's somebody that you're going to connect with, just like it is with anything else. It's just like teachers in high school or whatever. So find somebody that you connect with, somebody whose information makes sense to you, and somebody's information that you can apply to your own work, because that will be the best for you. Once I hooked on those couple of people that I was like, okay, I get it now, kind of absorbed everything they had to teach, and then moved on to different topics. And that's basically how I'm teaching you guys here too. Like, once I learned plot structure, then I started delving deeper into conflict, into goals, into character weaknesses, all of those kinds of things with different books I read and writing coaches I watched or went to. And then I started creating my own sort of formula for how a book goes together. And at a certain point, you got to let go of the safety rope and just write. So I know it can be terrifying, but once I really started just writing all the time and letting myself figure out for myself how a book goes together, that's when everything coalesced and I developed my own understanding of it, which is what I share with you guys here, my own understanding of the process and how it works. So it's just an amalgamation of like 20 million things I learned way back before the internet existed. Oh, that was a lot of talking. So let's do another 15 minutes. And yes, I agree, half a mo. It can totally be, being an overthinker can be a nightmare. Habitual overthinker here about everything else in my life but writing. So let's do another 15 minutes and we'll come back. And if you guys have another question, feel free to drop it in the comments. Well, there we go. That was good. I got my chapter done, sent it off to the client, and got to start on my own book. So yes. Um, Hi, Miss Blogger talked about adding physical description to the character master plan. So what you can absolutely add whatever you want. Right now, that's just what I created to go along with the videos. We don't talk about physical description in the videos, but absolutely add whatever you want. Add an extra page, add another section. I think they're Word document. Oh, maybe it's a PDF. Anyways, I don't actually really start with physical description, but it's entirely up to you. Like I say 1,000 times, write the book however works for you. And the video itself that I use to talk about the character master plan doesn't, like I said, talk about description at all. Look at you guys, 202 and 313. Great job. And Jean, how many books do I write a year? It's a lot. So when my career was my main focus, I generally wrote between 6 and 8 or 9 books a year. Now that I run a company that writes books, and then I still write my own books is down to about 3 a year, but I still write about 10 books a year for clients. The company does. I read everything. I don't necessarily write everything because I have other editors that work for me. I personally write at least 4 for clients and then do 3 of my own books. So still producing a lot of books, even all these years later. I've always written a ton, and just I like to stay busy doing what I do. And when I'm not writing books for a publisher or for a purpose, I write other stuff in between just for chuckles. And that was actually how my horror young adult came to be. I wrote a horror young adult, like first couple chapters, just for fun. And one day I pulled it out and I asked my daughter, hey, you think we could kind of plot this out? Because my daughter was 15 and I wanted to write young adult. And of course, I've got a 15-year-old who knows young adult world a lot better than I did. And that's what we did. That's how the cell and the cellar and the well, that's what they are. God, I'm just not with it today. So the cellar and the well came about to be because they were just something I was just writing for chuckles in between, just to sort of stretch my writing wings a little bit. I think I'm just a masochist. I'm writing when I'm not writing. I'm writing all the time. And I don't do fiction editing, Jean, at all. But I do have a mastermind group. And in that mastermind, and a couple of the masterminds are actually in the thing today. Wendy and Gayla are both here. And they are in my mastermind group. In the mastermind group, you do get some writing feedback. So the first 5 people to send in their pages in the group for the month gets feedback on their pages. And I'd say it's pretty good feedback. And here's the link to that. Because see, I have trouble doing 2 things at one time. They get some pretty hands-on feedback in terms of their book so that they can, my goal ultimately with the channel, with everything, is to teach you how to do it yourself. But fiction editing is actually extremely time intensive. So I don't do that anymore. I used to way back in the day. And you can only hire me as an editor for nonfiction. So that would be on my Jumpstart Creative Solutions website. So that's what my company specializes in, and the editors who work for me, we all specialize in nonfiction, because I started way back a bazillion years ago when I was 11 by lying about my age, and I got a job at a newspaper. And so I started in journalism, and I worked for Boston papers for many, many years, worked for magazines, and then got my first book contract. I don't know, I was like 24, 25 when I got my first book contract, I think. And that was a nonfiction book that came about directly because of an article I'd written about somebody. So my very first book contract was for a autobiography. So that's why I've always had a nonfiction business on the side. And I made it an official business about 5 years ago because there was getting to be a lot of demand. And I decided that I would make it like have payroll and all that kind of stuff there. So it became an official business just a few years ago. And yes, there's 2 openings in the mastermind groups. They're for the one that's on Tuesdays. It meets on usually like the 3rd or the 4th Tuesday of the month. It depends on how the month falls. So their meeting is let's see, the Thursday group is like 18th. Let me look at what it is. So the Thursday group is on the 18th. That's the group that Wendy and Gayla are in. But the Tuesday group, the next meeting is the 23rd. And we have 2 openings in that group. So if you guys want to do meetings with the mastermind group that meets on the last, it's like almost the last Tuesday of the month, then sign up by all means on that link. I tell you, it's been a long week. So that's the one that I have an opening for. And yes, Jean, if you saw what I did for the masterminds, you would understand why it's so much more work for me. I want the book that you write to be really, really powerful. And some editors will just kind of gloss over the edits, and they're not going to teach you how to show, not tell. They're not going to teach you how to reconstruct your plot. When I did edit fiction, which was a long time ago, I really would go in there and be like, okay, your book is starting in the wrong place. You need to start here. You need to move this scene here, put that scene there, take this character, take them out, take this one, put this in, add this character. Like, it was very intense, and didn't make a lot of money for it way back when. So that's why I don't do it anymore. I realize that it is more work than nonfiction, frankly, because nonfiction is very cut and dry. And so it's still a lot of work to write a nonfiction book, but it's not as involved as being fiction. So how does the timing work out internationally? Half a mo. So it's at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what are you, 6 hours from us? So that's really late for you. I'm sorry. But you can watch the replay. I just don't tend to go over people's pages if they're not there, because, that's their pages. And I don't want to just be like talking about them when they're not there. But I will do those 5 people's pages regardless of whether they're in the meeting or not. And you can watch the replay. And if you are joining, obviously, from way over there and it's like midnight, then you just remind me, hey, it's midnight where I'm at. Please do my pages first. And I can do that. And you can hop off and watch the replay on the Circle community. I put the link in there. You guys in the mastermind also get your own section of the Circle community. So you can talk amongst yourselves. Like, Cheryl's usually here. She's in the same group as Wendy and Gayla. So that small group, it's limited to 15 people, is within their one Circle community as well. So they can talk privately just in their group. So they're not talking about their plot among my larger writing compelling fiction Circle community. And so the other group, I forget what they're called. There's like Hemingway and Dickens. I think we just gave them not stupid, but cutesy names. The other group has their own section to talk amongst themselves if they want to. So yes, although I can totally relate to the insomnia. I don't sleep well either. So when I go to bed at night, my husband stays up later than me. He's a total night owl. And I try to get up early in the morning. But every time I go to bed, I'm like, well, wish me luck. Hopefully I fall asleep before he comes to bed, because I just sleep like crap. Probably doesn't help that I'm watching things about monsters that eat people before I go to bed. I'm sure that's not helping anything. But I have been reading the Elon Musk biography before I go to sleep. And I got to say that within 3 pages, I'm usually ready to just knock off for the day. So when I'm reading a really good fiction novel, I'm like, okay, one more chapter, just one more chapter. So that's next on my list. I'm almost done with the biography. I'm only reading it because I have a client, I do some celebrity stuff. So I have somebody that's a very well-known person that I'm writing their biography, their autobiography, and that person wants it in the style of Elon Musk's biography. So I don't know. Jean, out of my 85 books, most of them are fiction. I've published, I think, under my own name, I think I've published 5 nonfiction books, 4 or 5. I don't know. When I ghostwrite, obviously my name is not on the book. So I've written a lot more nonfiction that is not publicly under my name, because I ghostwrite for people on the Today Show and HGTV people and White House advisors and NFL players. So I ghostwrite for people that don't want anybody to know that they didn't write their own book. So there, my name's not on there, but 95% of my books are fiction. So yeah, most of them are. And then my how-to book, nonfiction. So, and I am working on a workbook for this. I swear, you guys, I know I keep saying I'm going to finish it, but you've been seeing that every Friday since February 18th, because that was the date on my pages. I have been working on client books on Fridays instead of my own. Okay, so, and I'll do just Miss Blogger's question, and then we'll do one more sprint. So what do I do if my characters only have an age and marital status but don't have a job? Well, everybody has a job, right? Even if it's homemaker or stay-at-home mom or something, everybody has a job, because everybody needs to pay the mortgage, right? Like everybody has to keep the lights on. So everybody has some kind of job. If they're young, then their job is to be a student. You know, if they're like 10 years old, their job is to be a student. If they're wealthy, then their job is to maintain the family wealth. You know, everybody has something. There's got to be something that gets them out of bed every day and, you know, gives them something to do. So characters should have some kind of something that they are pursuing. And yes, there should definitely be a job, because that is how we are defined by other people. And that gives off that first impression. I talk about the dominant impression in that handout. It gives off the first impression. If you say that somebody is a construction worker, you have this like image in your mind of what a construction worker looks like. And it'd be great to turn that upside down with your character. If you say somebody is an accountant, then you have, you know, a certain image in your mind of that. Probably wasn't the accountant that Ben Affleck played in the movie, where he was like a killer too. So when you can turn that upside down, that's really fun. So, and my brain map course, yes, Hefemo, it was a good course. And it's not that it's dead. It's just I haven't had time to do that. I really should probably do a master class on that. Got to look at when I'm get all these books. We have 3 books in production right now that are finishing up this month. And what do I have? 18 days left. So those books are what is my priority. And then I have a little kind of sort of downtime with the company, and I can start working on some more writing compelling fiction things. Okay, Heather, I'll get back to your question after we do some more writing. Let's do 10 minutes because I talked way too much today. So, all right, let's do 10 minutes and we'll be back soon. Look at that. And I got to work on my book. I'm so happy because of that. Um, and yes, Heather, half a mo. Yes, I will have to definitely figure out how to do that brain map course. So, Heather, directions or suggestions for memoir. So, I've written a lot of memoirs for people, some that are quite well known, that if I pointed them out, you would definitely know who they are. Um, and what I really like to work with a memoir is the life lesson that you want to get across to people, because people don't need to know you were born here, you grew up here, you did this, that, whatever. They really just need the applicable parts that apply to the life lesson. It's kind of like writing a novel, right? You really want it to be the points where there is change in the character's life. So, like, I'm working on a memoir right now. That person that, well, anyways, of that the guy, and so he had a very traumatic childhood, which did impact what he is doing right now. So we do talk about his childhood for a little while. But I don't talk about like where he went to elementary school or middle school because nobody cares. And it has nothing to do with where he is right now. But these key events that happened in his childhood do have something to do with where he is right now. So everything that you put into a memoir should really kind of feed into that overarching, compelling message that you're trying to get across, that moment of change that you had in your life. So here are all the things that led up to it, and here are all the things that happened afterwards, because that's what people are really trying to take from a memoir. They're trying to take the life lessons. They're trying to be inspired. And so they want to see, okay, well, she came from total poverty and climbed out of it and became a multimillionaire. Okay, that's the story that I want to read. And so you only touch on the stuff that's there. And you really want to kind of lay a little bit of you definitely have to lay a hook in the beginning of a memoir, because you're asking people to stick with you for their whole like many pages. And like Elon Musk's biography, the very first couple pages, the biographer says, is he crazy? And that's what I set out to figure out with this book. And so I really wanted to find out, is Elon Musk crazy? Actually, he's probably actually brilliant, but and that's not like a political statement. He just invented some pretty really amazing cool things, and that's a lot of what the book talks about. But that question kept me reading, and has, even though the book puts me asleep in 3 pages. So yes, you guys did great. 190 words, 163 words, 100 words. You guys are doing great. I did not write Minnie Driver's memoir. No, I would love that though. If she ever writes a sequel, she could certainly call me. I've done a number of them and they've been really cool. And it's hard to get people to open up about that stuff, for sure. There's been some that have been really, really difficult to write because people don't want to talk about the stuff they talk about in therapy, essentially. So some are really hard to write. Some have been really easy. It just depends on the client. So, and yes, you're welcome, Heather. I'm glad you're there. And Gayla wanted to know if I would still critique her pages if you're not there on Thursday. So the rule with both mastermind groups is the first 5 people. So if you are one of the first 5 people in the mastermind group to get me your pages, then yes, you just won't get the on-camera feedback and stuff that we do in like the live mastermind itself, because I'm not going to talk about your pages in front of other people. That just seems mean. So anyways, I appreciate you guys all joining me today. I feel like I talked an awful lot instead of sprints. Sorry. Usually we try to do 3 or 4 sprints and it just kind of got away from me. So if you did do the little prompt that I had there about the conflicts, let me know how that went. And let me know if watching that video with the scene dissection helps you figure out the conflicts in your book. And if you come up with another topic you really want to see, just let me know, because I definitely want to deliver the kind of information you guys need so you can make your dream of becoming a successful author into a reality. Because that's what I want to see for everybody. I dreamed about being an author from the minute I learned how to read. And I worked my butt off to make that come true. And I want to help you guys do the same. So thank you so much, everybody. I should be here next Friday. But it will be a quick one because I have a trip to do next weekend. But I'll be here for a couple Fridays, 2-3 Fridays. And then I'm going away for a few days. And so I'll keep you guys posted. But next Friday will be a quick one, like probably 45 minutes, because I have a trip to go on. So thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it. And Miss Blogger had one more thing. Your zombie characters are high schoolers who are both a player and a cheerleader. And so, yeah, their jobs are to play, be a football quarterback or end zone person. I don't know anything about football person. And her job maybe isn't to be a cheerleader unless she's like the head cheerleader, but her job is also to be a student. And when you're in high school, like you've got other jobs, you've got to kind of find a good college. You've got to maybe get a part-time job to pay for college. You've got goals and motivations and conflicts, especially the closer you get to senior year. And I don't use an Enneagram as blogger. I've never used one. So I go by deep emotional wounds, which is what I talk about a lot in the videos, because I figured out that trauma is what makes us do what we do. And so when you give your character some trauma and some deep emotional wounds, they make some bad decisions, and then they have to climb back out of it and either decide to get, work through it and become the whole person they were meant to be, or just stay stuck in the same place. So writing a book is a lot like kind of doing therapy on your characters. It's awesome. So thank you guys. And yes, Cece, I will definitely be talking about how to make a wordy scene tighter in the scene dissections that I do, because I'll probably do like some before and afters down the road. I don't save a lot of my before and afters, so I don't necessarily always have that, but I'll look through my computer and see what I've got to do one of those. So thank you guys for being here, and I will see you next week. Have a great writing week, guys.